some people think that grace is weakness, but it's not. In fact, I believe grace is the most powerful response that we have for hate. And I had someone once say to me, and it was actually a book review, but it was after the film came out. They said this. They said, Scott Lorette, his book, his movie, and everyone involved. I never swore there, but this person, I know she's an opera singer in Southern California. Don't ask me how I know, but she said this about me, about the movie, about the film, about everybody who put their heart and soul into making the film possible. F us all. And I could have answered with anger, it carried bitterness, but instead, I chose grace. Grace over hate is not weakness, as I said. It's powerful. I never respond to online hate, ever, until now. But I'm not responding in anger. I'm responding with grace. And, the one thing about this that I think is refreshing and cleansing, because I've chosen to never respond to any of these people. And it's shocking, actually. That one, and there's a couple other I'm going to share that they're the most, I guess, heinous. And it hurts my heart because I think, to me, I think about what are these people going through to be able to have and harbor such vitriol in their hearts, to just type it out and say something like that to another human being. The bitterness, it's shocking to me. And this isn't about revenge. Not at all. It's about what happens when you take a stand for faith, for family, for dreams, and how you choose to respond. Now, I can contrast when the book came out to how things were when the movie came out. And the vitriol after the movie came out was exponentially more pronounced and voluminous than when the book came out. Obviously, much more exposure, much bigger platform with Lionsgate. And if your dream, I think, doesn't attract resistance, maybe it's not big enough. But when the movie did come out, though, I looked on Rotten Tomatoes, and what's really cool, though, and this is what counts, and that's the audience, but on Rotten Tomatoes is also Hollywood critics, and I picked the best ones that I thought I would share. There's 5 of them. The shell is so hollow. Only if the noise it unfortunately contains to create wasn't so loud. Number 2, the ersatz sentimentality and Americana at its most shamelessly emotional and manipulative ilk. I have no idea what that person is trying to convey there. Number 3, the father that learned to love his son for who he is. Finally. Good for him, I guess. The unbreakable boy will satisfy the terminally vanilla moviegoers, but most of us will see right through this game. And the last one, 3 words: preaching, cloying, contrived. So those things they cut. They cut. But I think that's why sharing these and exposing these to the sunshine. I know there's a political saying that some politician created, something actually good, but about the best disinfectant is the sunshine. And I guess that's what I'm doing here, is I'm sharing some of this with you all, with you people, because when you are vulnerable, which I believe is a strength, an absolute strength, and you share, it doesn't matter. You can say that the sky is blue and you're going to be hated for it. And for people to say that they hated my story, they hated our representation and this and that, it's when you get that, it does, it kind of rocks you initially. Absolutely, I cannot deny that. But the third example, though, that I have to leave with you, because this is one that it almost frightened me. But before that, I should address one thing, because the book, the story, everything, I know that there's probably some confusion where people might initially think that it's this story about this autistic kid, and then they come to realize he's such a whirlwind force and a central character to everything that's happening. And he is in real life. But it's also my story. And how I chose to represent it and present it, it was shocking for me to see some of the reception to some of the groups, and specifically the autism world. And what I've come to learn is this, a few things. But first, there is I would call a militant subset, a very small subset in the autism world, that they believe autism should be presented in a specific, detailed, and absolute way. And if you don't, then you are evil. You're wrong, and the hate is real, and it's insane. But here's I didn't respond. Silence to me, silence does not mean defeat. Not at all. I've chosen to not trade my peace for an argument that I can't win. So there are a handful of YouTube channels. There's 2 or 3 that I know specifically. I know one of them's made a lot of money off of me and the Unbreakable Boy. And it's heinous. I have been wished bodily harm lots of times. And the insults and the vitriol is just horrendous. But this one takes the cake. When you're on social media, for example, like with Instagram, and someone tags you, I saw this because it was a hashtag, the Unbreakable Boy. And I clicked on it, and this was a couple months ago, probably 3 months or more. I'm not going to show you the picture, but it was one of my favorite pictures of me, actually. And underneath it, it said, bald albino, what's it say? Bald albino alcoholic piece of feces. Bald alcoholic albino piece of feces. And that was a very vocal and specific subscriber to this fairly popular autism channel. Through all this, though, I watched an episode of a friend of mine, Rob Gorski. He's got a channel called The Autism Dad, and he spoke about something that I'd been chatting with other people about, including Rob. But it was essentially how people that, tend to preach tolerance so strongly can sometimes be the ones that are the least intolerant. And in the autism world, and I'm sure it exists in other places, but there are people that looked at, for example, the movie and said, no autistic person's going to wear that hat. An autistic person doesn't act like that. An autistic person doesn't talk like that. And let me tell you, Austin wears the jester hat probably every other day. Jacob Laval, who played Austin in the film, was so accurate, it's scary. He won a Youth Academy Award for his performance. It was amazing how remarkably accurate the film was. And these people, though, in this little microcosm, this echo chamber and bubble, I'm kind of belaboring a point. So I really need to move on to Grace. I look at Austin. What does he do? What's his example? His example is some of the worst people he embraces and wants to be closer to and best friends with. That's just the way he is. He loves them even more for their brokenness. And it's pretty remarkable. And as so many things that he does, I wish that I had more of that in me. Luke 6:28 says, "Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you." And Romans 12:21 says, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." I think back, it's a story out of the film, actually. And I'll tell you where, if you want to split hairs, there's something that there was a little artistic liberty taken in the film. There's a pretty popular scene where Logan has his skateboard stolen from him. And in real life, it was something different. It was an Easter basket. And Logan ended up giving that to the bully. And it was a real happening. It was a real event. And I look at that as Grace. Seeing Grace from, at the time, young kids, not even teenagers. It's pretty awesome. But, hate is temporary. It is. Impact is internal. Eternal, I should say. Eternal. Grace steadies you when the road gets long. Teresa and I learned a lesson as well. Showing grace, I think, is something that I know that at least I have to consciously try to do. And there's one example of Teresa and I showing grace to someone. Let's just leave it at that. But we showed grace. And it was in a somewhat toxic situation, which was just not comprehensible. But we showed grace, and it was not reciprocated. And I think what's important there is that you're going to have those types of things in life. You're going to have those types of things moving forward. Your purpose, your dream, your why. There are going to be people that hate, and there are going to be people that don't care that you care, and you show grace and love. And that's just going to be that way. This was hard because I so badly I want to just lash out. And I talked to Peter and I talked to Zach, and they're like, just don't even look at it. Don't even. But being someone that's not in the industry, it's hard because it's something that I put my heart and soul into, and the story is so accurate, and I wanted to share that. Share the love with everyone. And to have people wish you bodily harm and call you the most vile of things is shocking. But today, my ability to, in this platform, come and share with you these things, I'm glad I'm able to do that, because I can walk away from this now and just know that I'll feel better, because I'm just not alone, and everybody has these things. And I'll take grace over hate, faith over anger, and love over vengeance and toxicity all day long. And that's not weak. That is powerful. God bless. Take care.